Welcome to Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. This is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. You can watch the show live or on demand on the YouTube channel or on Facebook. Just search for Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. You can also watch the show live on Twitch. We're going to get right into it today. I'm very excited about this review. I've got my frequent co-host Niamh on to discuss and review The Black Phone. Looking forward to this movie for quite a while. I know when I've spoken to Niamh, probably almost a year ago, because the movie was supposed to come out last year. We're looking forward to it, so we're very happy we're both able to see it. But before we get into the review, let me introduce my frequent co-host. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know Niamh. She is from the UK. She is a horror fan, and more importantly, she is a true crime blogger. So Niamh, introduce yourself to the audience and tell them where they can find your work.
Oh, hiya. As you mentioned there, my name's Niamh. I'm a true crime blogger. You can find my stuff at crimeinmypocket.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well then at crimeinmypocket to keep up with any new posts and new content.
Excellent. And again, if you are a true crime fan, check out her blog. It's really fantastic. As I said before, it's a deep dive into certain cases, but she does it in a concise way, so you can read through one of her blogs pretty quickly, and you go through a lot of them actually, which is great, and you get a lot of great information. And she's a wealth of knowledge on that. She does a lot of hard work on that. It's a passion of hers. But her other passion, which is what led her to me in the podcast, is horror movies. So we're going to talk about The Black Phone. Before we get into our discussion of it, I'm going to give a little background on the movie. Now, this movie is of particular interest to me for a couple of reasons. One, I saw the trailer last year, and if you've seen any of the promotional materials for this film, and I think what drew me in initially is a visual of the mask that Ethan Hawke's character wears in the trailer and in the poster. Pretty disturbing, pretty creepy. It kind of brought me in. And then when I first saw the initial trailer, what it was about. Now, normally, and I'll get into it more when we talk about the review. Ethan Hawke's character is called the Grabber. He's a serial child murderer. So normally, that's not the kind of subject matter that I would really go into or watch as a film, because I have two small kids, so that kind of hits me a little bit differently than it did before I had kids. But the way the trailer presented itself was very alluring, honestly, and I was interested. And plus, to see Ethan Hawke really play a bad guy, he's never really done that per se. So all of that interested me as well. So that's what got me into wanting to see the film. And then, of course, I reached out to Niamh. This was months and months ago when the movie was probably supposed to come out, and then it got pushed back. But a little history of the film. The other interesting thing about the movie is the movie is directed by Scott Derrickson and co-written by Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill. Now, if Scott Derrickson's name sounds familiar, he directed the first Doctor Strange, and he also directed another film that Niamh and I reviewed on one of our Halloween episodes, which is Sinister, which also actually starred Ethan Hawke. So we're both big fans of that film. So it was interesting to see him kind of return back to his horror roots. He was actually supposed to direct the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which I'm actually going to review next week. I finally saw it on Disney Plus. I have some distinct opinions on that movie. Sam Raimi took over that one, but that's not for this show. But Derrickson was going to direct the second Doctor Strange as well. He had either creative differences, something happened. He ended up leaving the movie. So instead of doing that film, he did this film, The Black Phone. So The Black Phone takes place in Colorado in the late 70s. And we are introduced to the character of Finney and his sister Dawn. Or excuse me, his sister Gwen, I'm sorry. And as the movie opens, it sets it up. They go to school. Their parents are actually, their mother has passed away, so their dad, a widower, played by actually the great actor Jeremy Davies, who has been in a lot of great movies, but I remember him mostly from Saving Private Ryan. He is their dad. He's an alcoholic. He's abusive. Finney gets bullied in school, and his sister kind of sticks up for him, actually, even though she's the younger sister. And as we find out, the movie sets it up. There is a series of kidnappings of teenage boys, young boys, and they cannot figure out who it is. And what ends up happening is Finney ends up actually becoming the latest victim, kidnapped victim of the person that's called the Grabber, which is played by Ethan Hawke. And as that's how the film sets up, he takes him captive, and then as he's put in a cellar, a big walled basement, actually cellar, if you want to call it. And there is a black phone in this room that doesn't work. It's not functioning. And the phone starts to ring. Finney picks it up, and he hears conversations from what appears to be the other victims of the grabber that have died and are trying to help him get out. So that's the simple premise of the film. The film is based on a short story by Joe Hill that was written in 2004, and Joe Hill is actually Stephen King's son. So that's kind of the setup there. So I'm going to let Niamh get in here and talk about the discussions, because I actually have a odd reaction to this movie, and I'm excited to talk to Niamh about it. I want to get her thoughts on it. But Niamh, go ahead and give me your takes on what I've talked about as far as the plot and what you thought about the movie.
You saying there about you having an odd reaction, I think I sort of had the same. For me, I think because like you say, it's about child murder and things. I initially went into it already feeling uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I guess uncomfortable would be the right word, because like you said, it's about child murders and all that sort of stuff. But the plot was interesting, like you say, about the mask as well. That was really creepy, and it was interesting. Again, like don't really know much of Ethan Hawke's work anyway. Only Sinister I really know him from. So it was interesting to see him like in this other role of this horrible, really terrifying character.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, if his work, I mean, he was a child actor. He's been acting since he was a young boy. So he's had a pretty long career and a varied work. But yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was thinking that. I thought maybe, because I don't know much of his work, I was thinking, is he just not, is much of his stuff not that big in the UK? Is he just a bigger deal in the US, maybe?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's just Sinister I know him from.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, some of the films he's done in the United States that you probably would know. I mean, he was in Dead Poets Society, the film with Robin Williams. He was in a film in the 90s, kind of a Generation X film called Reality Bites that Ben Stiller directed. So it was Stiller, Ethan Hawke, Winona Ryder, Janine Garofalo. So he's been in, and he's done a lot of independent work as well. He did a film with Paul Schrader, the director. It's called First Reformed. I haven't seen that one. And he's done, over the last 10 or 15 years, he's done more independent films, smaller movies. Now, obviously, he's done Sinister. He's done this film. He's actually in the Marvel television series Moon Knight. He's the villain actually in that series. I haven't watched it on Disney Plus, but yeah, like I said, he's been around for a long time. But yeah, I don't know how big his films are in the UK. That's a good question. Obviously, not that big, because you really are not familiar with his work other than in Sinister.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my thing was, and when I talk about my odd reaction to the movie, when I saw the trailer, like I said, I had trepidation about it, even though it had Ethan Hawke, because of the subject matter. And it's funny, after I watched the film and formulated my opinion, I'd read a couple of reviews, and it was funny that some of the reviews were kind of where I was going on this page. Now, I thought the movie was good. It's weird because I was afraid it was going to be really, what's the word I'm looking for? The movie, here's the best way to put it, and I was surprising, and it's ironic for me because I think it actually dings my overall impression of the movie. I actually was afraid it was going to be really, really dark, and it actually was not.
No.
Like I thought, I came in with preconceived notions about what it was going to be, which made me uncomfortable. And the ironic part was the movie didn't push it that way. Now, that may be a good thing. I'm actually, that's why I'm kind of, this is the first movie I think I've ever reviewed where I'm not sure the creative choices. I'm not sure if I liked them or wish he would. I actually wish the movie would have been a little bit darker, which is strange coming from me, considering the subject matter. Now, not to say that, and I think a lot of it is the way it was. It became, to me, for good or for bad, however you think, is it became more of an escape movie than a horror film, which that's fine. I think I was looking for or expecting more horror and less of the escape part of it. And I'm not even saying that as a criticism. I think I had such preconceived notions of what this movie was going to be based on what I saw in the trailer. And even though I knew that he was going to, I mean, they tell you in the trailer, so there's no spoilers here. So if you watch the trailer shows that at some point he does escape where he's at, but that he's still in danger. So that none of that is what we're talking about here, a spoiler. If you've seen the trailer, then you already know that part of it. But even with that knowledge going in, I just thought, and which is ironic because, like I said, I was afraid it was going to be too dark and not to the point where I wouldn't have enjoyed it as an entertaining film. Like Sinister to me is much darker than this movie.
You do. You see a lot more violence in Sinister, and I was worried going into this that you would see a lot of graphic violence, and that it might go a bit far, perhaps talking about sexual abuse. And I thought, I don't want to see that. I don't want that from a film.
Yeah.
So I was a bit concerned. You saying about it turning into an escape film, I did quite enjoy that avenue, especially like you said, we escaped from the trailer, but with because there's failed attempts and stuff throughout the film as well. It does sort of hit you like, oh well, is he going to escape? And that's a good build up. I did like the avenue it took there with the escape and going off the sort of, like I said, no violence or anything like that.
Yeah. And that's the key, I think, to whether somebody's going to really enjoy this film or not. And like I said, I liked it, and I'll give my Van Gogh review at the end. I liked the movie. I liked Ethan Hawke's performance. I probably would have liked, and this is a minor criticism, and it's always tough with these movies because, like, you know, we talk about a movie like Halloween and Michael Myers where they give you just minimal backstory. With this guy here, with the grabber, as he plays him, I would have liked a little bit more backstory about why he's doing what he's doing. It didn't have to be a whole long thing about it, but it was they really give no reason that he's doing what he's doing.
Because he looks at a film that portrays just, you know, your standard sort of serial killer, violent offender, you know, child serial killer. And there was no backstory or anything which this is a part that interested me, obviously being a true crime blogger,
right,
about like, you know, why is he doing this? What kind of serial killer or is he then? Or, you know, what kind of offender is he? So seeing the no backstory, I agree with that, was a bit disappointing. But then I did think, is that setting up for some sort of sequel from it? Are they setting up to tell the story in perhaps another film or something from it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what I did read, and like I said, when I read the reviews after, which is a good point, I think some of the criticisms of the people that didn't love the movie, because like I said, it was based on a short story, and there was always a danger when you adapt a short story as opposed to a novel to a film, because you have the opposite problem with a novel. With a novel, you have to take stuff out. Because if you like literally film a novel, it would be a 5-hour movie. But with a short story, sometimes you have to stretch because you don't have enough for a full movie screenplay. And I haven't read the short story, so I can't tell what was from the short story and what was put in. So I'm sure there were things put in by the screenwriters, and but it still seems thin in the sense, like I said, the backstory of the grabber. The other major part of the story, like I said, we could talk about it because I actually liked Gwen, who's portrayed by Madeline McGraw.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with her. I thought she was excellent as the little sister.
Yeah.
And the movie shows her having basically psychic dreams and the ability to see bad things happening. And apparently they don't insinuate, they actually stated outright from the father's character that the mother had a similar gift, and that it ultimately drove her insane.
Yeah.
So they basically talk about that in the film, and this is what kind of fuels his anger, alcoholism, and his abusiveness towards his kids. So that was interesting. Like I said, I think that was probably the most interesting part of the movie for me, actually. I thought her performance was great. I thought her trying to reconcile this ability, her father basically, you know, just giving her a very hard time about it and telling her basically to stop, because basically I'm sure it reminded him of his wife, and he didn't want her to go down that same path of mental illness. But so I said there's a lot of interesting things in the movie. The kid that plays Finney I thought was good as well. I thought
on about the sister Gwen's character as well, on the other side of it, with all the seer stuff, the dreams you hear about her mother. And, you know, whether it's mental illness, psychic abilities, all this bad stuff. There was sort of a flip side to her that I really liked, is in the way she swore all the time, this little girl in pigtails, and her swearing, and it gave that nice comedic element, nice little break.
Yes, to undercut some of
that. And I really enjoyed that from her as well. I really enjoyed the performance as a whole that way.
Yeah, it's a great performance. Well, yeah, when you're talking about her profanity, especially when she's talking to the police, when they're questioning her, because the police here are kind of, I don't want to use the word, not incompetent. That's too harsh. They're definitely not top detectives. They, at least the way they were portrayed in the movie to me, I thought they
Mm.
were mediocre police officers at best, because there was kind of a
Yeah.
lot of things that they were letting. I mean, forget about the supernatural stuff, and I have no problem with them not believing about her psychic stuff. That I get that, because there's always
Mm.
skepticism around that. But of course, the movie did show them actually believing her as the movie progressed, and they
Yeah.
realized that she was right about things. So they became more believers as the movie progressed. But yeah, no, she, like I said, she's probably, that was my probably my favorite performance in the film if I had to pick one. Like I said, I
Yeah.
thought everybody was fine. Ethan Hawke was really good, but like I said, I would have
Mm.
liked to see more of what the motivation was.
Yeah.
Like I said, it didn't have to be a lot, just something, a little nugget, even if it was something to go, oh, this is kind of what happened. It didn't have to give me the whole chapter and
Yeah.
verse, but just that would have been great. And like I said, it's a weird. It's like I said, this is the first movie I've expected something, didn't get it, and I don't even want to say, because like I said, I don't want to say I'm disappointed, because I don't even know how I feel about it. It was just, I think I was preparing, like I said, I was preparing myself for something really, to use the word sinister, darker, more menacing,
Mm.
and that's not what it was. And
No.
maybe that's intentional, because maybe, like I said, I haven't read the short story, so I don't know how they like I said, I don't know how they changed it, and I don't know if maybe Derrickson's intention was, knowing that the subject matter is what it is, that this
Mm.
was their intention all along, just to make it more of a, kind of cat and mouse game, between,
Mm.
between him listening to the people on the phone, between him trying to battle the grabber to make sure, So it's a weird, I don't know. Like I said, I find myself kind of at a loss, because I think I'm kind of glad it didn't go darker, but yet at the same time, I wish it maybe would have went a tad more darker than it was. So yeah, I'm basically, man, I don't know. I'm baffled by this one. This is just an odd one for me.
Mm.
But again, overall, I liked the movie a lot. Like I said, all the performances were good. I love the 70s setting. I do like movies that kind of go back there, because it's pre-technology, so there's no cell phones,
Yeah.
no internet, no any of that stuff. So it adds an element to the storytelling that I think helps, especially in this type of genre film, because obviously if this happens now, I mean, obviously kids get kidnapped now, but obviously with the technology as it is now, sometimes
Mm.
you're able to facilitate a lot of things quicker than you would back in the late 70s. So again, overall I enjoyed it. Like I said, I could tell people the good thing about my issues with not even issues, but the thing of the movie is, if you're going into the movie or hesitant to see the movie because you think of the subject matter is really dark, I can at least tell you
Yeah.
that you won't be, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. So if it's a
No.
movie that you would be interested in, I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, it was an enjoyable time. The movie wasn't very long. It was an hour and 30 something, I think a little over 90
Yeah.
minutes. Again, and my other reviews of movies over the past few weeks, like I said, it's, more and more movies are tipping over the 2.5 hour mark, 2 hour, 40 minutes. And it better be worth it to be that. But I think with this type of
Yeah.
movie, it's smart to keep it short. I think if the movie was longer, like I said, the only thing that I would have liked to make it longer was be a slightly more backstory, which you could have added like 5-10 minutes at the most. But it comes in as a tight movie. So like I said,
But
I
I was
enjoy.
going to say as well, there was enough already in it as well. The way the story builds from what you hear from from the kids on the phone, then the dead kids on the phone and things like that. There's enough in it to build up as well, even in just the hour and a half. So there's not really much need for it to be longer.
Right, and the other, and that made me think too. The other part of the movie that I did like a lot was
Mm.
the the arc of Finney's character, because obviously at the beginning of the film, I didn't talk about it earlier, but so at the beginning of the film, he's bullied a lot, he's picked on
Yeah.
a lot, and it's him finding his inner strength with the assistance of the kids that are on the phone
Mm.
to combat this obviously lethal threat. So I like that part of it a lot too. So like I said, there's a lot about the movie I liked, and like I
Yeah.
said, I just think, and like I said, I wish I could give a better explanation of what I was expecting as far as the horror elements. And again, like I said, I wasn't disappointed. It was just I was expecting a different movie. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I was expecting
Yeah.
a different movie, and it wasn't that, but that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
I was expecting something different. It was not, and it was still enjoyable. So I'm going to give The Black Phone, out of 5 Van Goghs for me, I'm going to give it 3.5. Usually at 4 Van Goghs, that's a movie I would see over and over again. I don't know if I would see this one over and over again, but I still did enjoy it, and it's enough for me to recommend it for people that are fans of Ethan Hawke, fans of this type of film. I would give it 3.5 out of 5. So what would you give it?
Much like you, I was expecting a different film, but I was much more relieved with what we got. Like I said, from the lack of violence and the lack of anything graphic, and with it being more about escaping and speaking to the ghosts and that. So I did really enjoy it as well. But I think I'm going to stick on just a slightly lower three as well, sort of middle tier. It's a horror I enjoyed. I would recommend it, but again, it's not one of my favorites.
No, I think we're on the same page on this one. But so yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Like I said, I think it's a fun. You want to take some movie? Like I said, I think it's worth to check it out if you're a fan of it. Like I said, if you are not, or if you're turned off by graphic horror or really dark,
Mm.
then this is a good one for you. Then it's kind of a mid level in the sense that it's not overly, like you said, overly dark, overly graphic, overly violent film.
Especially, it's more so with the involvement of children that I was a bit like, I don't want
Yeah,
to go into this seeing the violence and stuff,
yeah,
because the storyline is about a child murderer.
right.
So with it being more what it was, I was really relieved, and I found it like much more enjoyable. That was more palatable, I suppose, without it being so graphic and uncomfortable.
You're right, and that's actually a great word to use. Yeah, it
Mm,
definitely makes it more palatable. Like I said, so that's why I wasn't disappointed. For me, I think,
no.
like I said, that's too strong. But like I said, I think no, I think you're right, and I think that's intentional. I think that's a great point you bring up. That with the inherent subject matter, the filmmakers didn't feel the need to push it any further than they did.
No.
So, and I think that like I said, but that's what it is. But like I said, I think it's an enjoyable film. So I definitely check out The Black Phone. Like I said, if you've seen Sinister, it's definitely not as dark as Sinister. So
No.
that's a good marker since you have the
Mm.
same filmmakers around that one. So yeah, so definitely if you're looking for something a little lighter, and I use that term loosely, than Sinister, I think this movie is a good one. And like I said, it was short to the point, told the story
Mm.
with really good performances. Like I said,
And
Gwen,
on about the performances
yeah,
as well as Gwen's being brilliant, and you saying you enjoyed Ethan Hawke's. I found him actually quite scary in it, with the mask and everything, and his
yeah.
mannerisms, his behaviors, the way he spoke to the children. He was scary in it. He was a good horror villain in it as well. It's a strong horror villain character.
Yeah, absolutely. No, let's get into that. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
forgot. I almost passed over what got me into the film to begin with. So yeah, the mask. I don't know, and I didn't really look into and I'll probably look into it after the podcast. The designers of the mask who designed them, they are creepy. Like
mm,
I said, you see the poster of it. It draws you in. I think it was a very smart visual tool to use. Like I
yeah,
said, it got my attention when I first saw it, and then yeah, his performance is it's funny because it's a great performance because he comes at it at which is the ones that are always more creepy to me. He's very when he first kidnaps Finney and puts him in the cellar, he's very kind. Yeah,
friendly and
very friendly,
kind,
very
and
kind.
yeah,
And like, things are going to be fine. There's nothing to worry about. And that makes it the worst because as an audience and as a viewer of the movie, you already know this is going to end badly.
yeah,
So you already know what's happened before because, like I said, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen it. You know it's not like you know what he does, and you know what
mm,
the end game is with him. But then, yeah, like you said, it starts very friendly. He tries to, and then he plays psychological games with him too, which is more fast. When he the one scene where he tells him, "I was about to let you go, but you upset me," like he
yeah,
was ever really going to let him go, and
yeah,
it's that kind of cat and mouse game, that psychological game of I'm not here to hurt you. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. When he knows and the kid knows because the kid is old enough to know that everything is not going to be fine.
mm,
And he's scared. So yeah, I thought that Ethan Hawke's performance was great, which I'm not surprised. Like I say, he's a fantastic actor. I'm not surprised that he delivers a great performance here, and I think the performance is good. And then and I don't want to give, and actually, when you find out, I don't want to give anything away because it's a little bit of a spoiler. So as the movie progresses, and then you kind of
mm,
find out what he's actually been doing and how he's been doing it, is I was very fascinated with that aspect too. That was a great part of finding out kind of the what really was going on, like when you really get the information about what he's been doing and how he's been doing it.
yeah,
So yeah, I thought it was well done, and the abduction scenes were. And this is I think was smart too, and I think that's what set me up for thinking it was going to be darker because the things that were actually pretty disturbing to me, and like I said, when I have to anyone, I think, is they show at the beginning of the film, they show a couple of the scenes of a couple of the kids getting abducted and how he does it.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're not overly violent, but you know it's scary because you see a kid helpless and then he snatches them up. And while they're not super violent, they were super disturbing to me. So and I thought that was a good way to set up, kind of how serious this was, and I enjoyed that at the beginning. It was because it was disturbing in that way where you kind of see what he was doing, and then they kind of just left it at that. So I think they were controlled in that as well. But even with that, though, I think it was good to show that because it just kind of hit home, what type of person he is, and what he's capable of and what he's been doing. So again, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I got 3.5 Van Goghs for the Black Phone. Niamh ticks in a little bit lower at 3 out of 5 Van Goghs. So again, that's the Black Phone. That's directed by Scott Derrickson, co-written by Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill. You have Ethan Hawke, Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw as Gwen, as we were talking about her performance, and again, Jeremy Davies as their father. So again, thank you for listening to Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I want to thank Niamh for coming on. It's always great to do, it's always great to have somebody on the show with me. That's always a lot more fun when you can bounce your ideas and your opinions off of somebody else. And if you are a regular listener to the podcast, remember, Niamh always comes back every Halloween for one of my favorite episodes of the year during the Halloween special. And I can't believe it's already around the corner again. And our tradition has been, until we run out of them, and I think it's been a cool one, we review a John Carpenter film and a newer horror film. So I think this year, and I think I've talked to Niamh about it, I don't think we're going to change it. I think we're going to review, I'm going to review The Fog, the John Carpenter film. I've never seen that one. Have you seen that one?
I think I have once. As you've spoken about it now, I'm trying to remember it. I have seen it about once. It's okay.
All right.
It'd be worth watching again.
Don't no spoilers. Don't tell me what you think about it. I don't even want to know until we record it. So I'll watch it, and then you can rewatch it, or if you know it enough. But we'll do The Fog, and then we'll time it right because Halloween Ends is coming out in October. So we got to wrap up that because we've done the first two already. So we'll wrap up the Halloween. This at least this iteration or this reboot from David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. So that's coming out in October. So that's going to be our episode. So look out for that one. That's one of my favorite ones of the year. It's so much fun to do. And like I said, Niamh gives a great perspective. She's a horror movie expert. I like horror movies. I like the horror movie genre, but she is an expert. That's why it's great to have her on for these shows. So before we go off the air, though, I want you to let me know what's cooking in the blog. What do you have going on? What's the latest one? What's the one you would want people to check out if they've never checked it out before?
My latest one from a few weeks ago covered the death of a K-pop singer from the 90s, Kim Sung-jae. He was found dead in his hotel room under sort of mysterious circumstances. There's people that think it was his girlfriend at the time, but she was found not guilty. There was a lot of this and that, and no one really knows what happened to him. So that's worth checking out. It's a bit of a mystery. It's a nice sort of delve into the unsolved. And I don't do a lot of unsolved, so that's been quite interesting.
Excellent. No, you don't really do that. I saw your post on it. I have to read it. Actually, I haven't had a chance to read it, so I will check that one out. And as I stated at the beginning, check out her blog. It's like I said, what's great about it is if you don't have time, here's how I describe her blog. If you don't have time to watch an 8-episode true crime documentary on Netflix or hours and hours, her blog is perfect because you get a bite size. And what I mean by that is you get a very well researched, very concise, bite sized version of the whole case, pretty much beginning, middle, and end. She does a great job. She's a great writer, and if it's a perfect blog if you are busy and you don't have a lot of time but still have an interest in these cases, definitely check them out. And I'm sure probably she's written this blog for quite a few years. I'm trying to remember. I'm sure of a few of her blogs they've made other, television shows, podcasts about them. But if you want the good Reader's Digest version where you get all the facts and all the interesting elements, definitely check out her blog if you're a true crime buff. She's definitely great at it, and I enjoy reading it. And I'm busy, so hers is perfect because I can get on, pick one, read it, and it doesn't take long at all, and it's an interesting, great read. So again, tell everybody again where they can find it.
Well, you can find it at crimeinmypocket.com, but also, like I said, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at crimeinmypocket. There's updates on new posts and obviously new episodes I'm doing here and things like that as well.
Excellent. And of course, this podcast, Let Me Bend Your Ear, you can follow the show also on Twitter at Bend Your Ear Pod. That's also the handle for Instagram and the handle for Twitch. You can watch this show live or on demand on YouTube, on Facebook, and you can watch it live on Twitch. If you want to email the show, the email is bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. And this audio podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. So just type in whatever app you use. Just type in Let Me Bend Your Ear Podcast. It should pop right up. And again, this is where we discuss and review movies new and old. So again, I want to thank Niamh so much for coming on. It's always great to talk to you, and it's great to get your perspective on these movies. So thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, and thank you again for having me on here again as well. It's always nice to catch up and chat horror movies.
Absolutely. All right, everybody have a fantastic 4th of July. Take care. I'll be back soon. Like I said, I'm going to be reviewing the next couple episodes. I'm going to do a 2 for next week. I'm going to do Doctor Strange, because I just finally saw it, and then Jurassic Park Dominion, or Jurassic World Dominion. So I'll do back to just a double quick review on those 2 movies. I have quick thoughts on that one. And like I said, stay tuned and watch, listen and read Niamh's blog, and then listen for our Halloween show that'll be coming out usually the week before Halloween. So we'll be definitely recording that and getting that out there for you there.